So I'm Susie Whitman, and I am the owner of the Curious Cat Bookshop. And I just wanted to welcome all of you. I've been meaning to do some educator outreach for a while now, and so I am so glad to just get you all in one room so that I can tell you guys about all of the things that we have for you. And today we have authors for you, and we also have teachers' guides, and we have little free gifts.
Nice.
Feel free to, if you're feeling snackish, we've got that. And I forgot to bring the water out. Come on in. We're going to have a little bit of a program where the authors talk first, and then we're going to mingle, and I'll bring out the waters so that you're not all parched. Before we get started, I just want to let you guys know, if you don't know, we do have book clubs, so you're welcome to join in our book clubs. Those are in the events on our website at curiouscatbookshop.com. And we have authors coming in all the time. Next month, we have Cindy Rodriguez and S.J. Taylor on the day of the Fall Harvest Festival, which is the 28th, I want to say. It's a Saturday. So they both are previously published authors who have their middle grade debuts coming out this fall. So we're super excited about that. And what you might be super excited about is that educators, when you're purchasing for your classroom, you get a 15% discount. And if you or your school are purchasing in bulk 50 copies or more, you get a 20% discount. So I wanted to let you know about that. I also want to let you know we do book fairs. So if you and your school are thinking about maybe we're going to try someone independent instead, please let me know. I'm happy to work with you on that. And I also I love to work with you on getting authors into your schools. And we can talk a little bit about how school visits work for authors as part of the program today. So I feel like I'm forgetting something. Anyway, welcome. And I'm going to have the authors introduce themselves so that they can tell you all about everything that they have done in their careers. And we'll just get started with the program.
Thank you. Go ahead, Beth.
Hi, everyone. My name is Beth Vrabel. I am so excited to be here with you. Thank you for sharing one of your last summer days with us. And I'm also very grateful for what you do and the time you spend with our next generation. And I have written about 15 middle grade novels. I didn't catch your name. What was Kara? I was telling Kara that one of the most pivotal years of my life was fourth grade. I think that was the first time I really grappled with the idea of whether I need to, and in what situations do I need to stand out and fit in. And that's a wonderful arena to share a lot of stories, that seesaw of trying to find your place in the world and also set yourself apart. My latest book, Carrie Homer Ruins Everything, came out in June. My publisher has said I don't share this, but I'm going to anyway. It's a contemporary, non-magical retelling of the Odyssey from the viewpoint of a boy who is trying to get his family to end their just continuous road trip. He comes from a family of con artists and schemers, and he's trying to bring their road trip to an end at a point where he can interview at the Ithaca School for Scholars, where he wants to be a student and change his fate. It was a lot of fun to write, and I'm really excited for you to get to know Carrie. I've also written a series called The Newspaper Club, which is about a group of kids in about fourth grade who decide to become the independent press in their small New England town. And also To Tell You the Truth, which was a Connecticut Book Award winner, got some great reviews, including School Library Journal, that said it's a must-buy for all libraries. I'm not sure how they enforce that, but we can help you out, make sure you're good. I love doing school visits. I love meeting with kids. And if there's any way I can help with your curriculum through the school year, any way that I can help instill a love of storytelling and writing, please know that local authors are a resource for you.
Thanks, Beth.
So I'm Carrie Firestone. I live in Avon, so it was a very nice trip to get here. And I started as an educator. So I was a teacher in New York City for a decade, high school, history, and government. And I just want to say thank you, educators, for everything you do. I get it. It was during the 90s and we didn't have resources. So we would like stand in front of one copy machine for hours and fight over the one textbook we were going to use and no toilet paper. We'd had to, so I get what it's like to be an educator on every level. And I just want to thank you because you don't get thanked enough. So moving from education, I moved to Connecticut and decided there was a point where I was doing a lot of community work, but was feeling kind of off mentally. Like I was like, there's something missing. And my husband's like, you've always wanted to write a book, just stop complaining and write a book. And I was complaining a lot. And so I sat down, I joined SEBWI, which is the children's author and illustrator international group, and started going to conferences in New York City. And I started getting confidence and wrote my first YA book about 10 years ago. Found a critique group, it was very organic and slow. And, we're all just regular people. And then we just start writing and hope for the best. And so my YA book, Loose Ends List, came out in 2016, and then The Unlikelies in 2017. And then I kind of shifted to where my heart has been my whole life, which is community building, social justice work, environmental work, and lots of political stuff. And so my books started to be more of an extension of my activism, I guess. And so one day I was at my kids' middle school kind of arguing with an administrator about some stuff, and he came out and we were talking about dress codes because the kids in my daughter's school her friends had been complaining about some creepy stuff, and I was not comfortable with it. So I went in and talked to this guy, and he said to me, some of the things these girls are wearing makes me uncomfortable. And I looked at him and said, they're 12. And it made me so angry that the next morning I sat down and started writing Dress Coded, which is now a fan favorite among mostly 6th and 7th grade young people. This is my nutmeg book. So it came from a place of, are you serious? And that's where a lot of my work comes. And then I followed that book up with The First Rule of Climate Club. My heart is really in environmental work. I'm on the Clean Energy Commission in my town. And so that is really a way to combine social justice, education, and climate, which was it's the book of my heart, I think. It's not doing as well because climate books are just not doing as well in the world right now. So I'm not sure how to make that better or change that. And that's all my friends doing climate work. I don't know why. But from that book, climate clubs have come, and grown. And I actually, on my Clean Energy Commission, copied my own book this summer, and I have 13 interns doing individual climate-related projects in our town, and it's just been amazing. So, there's a lot of overlap between what I do outside and what I do in writing, but it works for me, and we have, a core group of I always can tell at book events, these fierce young people come up to me and they're like, I'd like to buy your book. And I'm like, yep, I can tell you're going to be a Dress Coded fan. So it's this very fierce little fan group. So yeah, I love doing author visits. It brings me energy. And sometimes, writing is very solitary. And so I like to do a quick 20-minute lunch Zoom author visit just to talk about books. And it gets me inspired. Beth and I were talking about, my kids are about to start college, so that middle grade voice is not in my ear anymore. So it helps with writing when I get to sit and have a lunch bunch with the kids or do a full day visit. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, that's it.
Hard act to follow there. Hello, I am Debbi Michiko Florence, and I'm California native, but moved to Mystic, Connecticut about 12 years ago. And it was supposed to be temporary. I was there for 6 weeks. And I said to my husband, we have to stay here. And so I'm very happy and I don't want to move. So my background a little bit, I have always been a reader and a writer. From the time I could hold a pencil, I've been writing stories. But throughout all my school years, even though I kept writing stories, I never shared them. They were only for myself. And I didn't really think about writing as a career. I'm third generation Japanese American, but my parents spent a lot of time in Japan during their childhood. So I got a little bit of that first generation push of doctor or lawyer. And I'm like, how about veterinarian? So I got my degree in zoology. And then I went back and got my teacher's certificate. And I taught inner city LA for a very short time, and then I got to combine my two loves of animals and teaching, and I was a zoo educator at the Detroit Zoo for almost 5 years. And then I got married, and my husband's job took us to Mexico. And I don't know why, the zoo wouldn't let me keep my job. And I had to think about what else do I want to do. And all that time, I'd still been writing, again, for myself, and reading voraciously. And that's when I decided to take the leap and try and become a published author. And I wanted to write for young people because all my strongest memories are of the books that I grew up with as a child, particularly like, Madeline L'Engle, Charlotte's Web, Judy Blume, all of those books. And I said, I'm going to do this. And I entered a contest and I won. And then I entered this other contest and I won. I'm like, wow, this writing thing is really easy. I'm going to do this thing. And so 15 years of rejections of writing novels. I joined SCBWI as well. But then my first book was Jasmine Taguchi, Mochi Queen, a chapter book. And that particular book got rejected so many times. But one particular rejection was, oh, we love multicultural books. We're so excited for this submission. However, we are not convinced that the narrow focus of this Japanese American girl would be widely appealing to our readers. And I knew what that meant. So I put that away after crying. And then 2 years later, We Need Diverse Books formed. And the word was getting out. I turned that book in one more time, and FSG at Macmillan not only purchased the book, but they asked for more books. They said, do you have ideas for 3 more books? And I said, yes, but I did not. But I came up with ideas, and now this year it's 8 books for Jasmine Taguchi.
Yeah.
So I am absolutely thrilled. My heart has always been, though, with the older I guess 12 through 15-year-olds. That's where my emotional voice is. And so I also have middle grade novels. And right now they're upper middle grade novels dealing with friendship and first crushes, because I am a romantic at heart. And my most recent one is This Is How I Roll, about a Japanese American girl who's 12 years old. Her dad's a famous chef, sushi chef. She wants to be like him, but she feels like he is not encouraging her. So she goes off and learns from a cute boy's mom how to cook Japanese food. And, when you start telling secrets, things happen. So that is the most recent book. And then I have a picture book, Miki Nakayama, that is a picture book biography about a Japanese American chef. I co-authored it with Jamie McCallick, who lives in Rhode Island. And it's illustrated beautifully by Yuko Jones. About Miki Nakayama, who is the first female kaiseki chef. I like to tackle a lot of girls can't do that because you're not a boy thing. That's what Mochi Queen is, Miki Nakayama. And I also love doing school visits. I also teach workshops for young people and for adults. I'm an instructor over at the Highlights Foundation. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And I feel very lucky I get to do what I get to do.
Love highlights.
That person's like, I just want to shop.
They can look my stuff if you want to sit in my grass. He's the star.
So, and I hope that the sound is getting picked up, but I'll worry about that later. Let's talk about what school visits look like for you guys. And Before we start, something I meant to ask you guys is what grades are you teaching so that we know like what you're working with. How many are elementary? How many are middle school? And in Connecticut, middle school and junior high are roughly the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm from Illinois, originally, so it's a little different there. So we've got both age groups here, and we've got authors here who have written anywhere from picture books on up through YA. So tell us about your experiences with doing school visits, how you prefer to arrange them, like what you do for them, the kinds of activities you do, that kind of thing.
So my books range from younger middle grade through upper middle grade. And younger middle grade is really second through fifth grade. So it does span primary school through middle school. My presentations are really interactive. I like to break the ice by sharing with kids my most embarrassing, mortifying moments of growing up. And talk about how I developed a love of stories. I was a very introverted, very quiet kid who discovered power in a blank page and being able to write my stories. And if it wasn't exactly what I wanted to say, having that capacity to erase it and rewrite it until it was an inarguable version of my voice that I was ready to share with the world. And I talk a lot about how that empowered me to raise my voice in other situations as well. And how I was really the story collector of my family. Starting with interviewing my own family members, finding their stories, finding some really remarkable stories about my family, most of which have found their way in one version or another into the stories. I also have worked with schools to create their own newspaper clubs as a vehicle for them to become story collectors in their classrooms, in their communities, in their school community, and shepherd that process of creating a newspaper club and sharing that with their school. As far as booking school visits, I recently signed with a booking agency. I don't know if you guys have thought about that or do that. I use How Now Booking to kind of coordinate
too.
that.
Oh.
Do you really?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Which I just signed. So
I was her second client.
were you really?
Yeah.
She's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which should make booking incredibly easy for everyone involved. But yeah, that's. I think I answered. Anything else? Yes.
Don't you still do libraries? You came to our
Oh
library.
yeah, I also visit libraries, Girl Scout groups, any sort of club or organization. I do assembly style visits, but also smaller workshops, individual classrooms, things like that.
Can you share that with me later? Because I'm
Sure. Yeah.
so I'm very flexible, and I think it's because I'm a teacher. If you say like I don't feel like teaching today, can you come in? I'll probably be like, sure, I could. So I get energy from that, and I know sometimes you have no energy, so that's a good fit. But I've done everything from big fancy schools, 2-day visit, insurance policies, and all these parking. It gets a little crazy in the suburban schools because it's so regimented, all the way up to the school in Vermont that I keep going back to because they got a grant for me, and you have to walk across a field to get to the gym, and there's no heat in one of these rooms so it's really rural. So I love in central Louisiana was fantastic. So I've really been around to see how schools function. And I can be flexible. So sometimes people want to do an issue. They might. One school wanted to do climate clubs, so they had bulletin boards the kids had made about their perfect vision of an energy independent world, things like that. So they use the book to create cool visuals for when I come in. All the way up to my most recent in June was I drove up to Burlington for a lunch visit. And we just sat down with the kids who had read Dress Coded, and it got kind of heavy because it's an anchor book. So we start talking about school refusal or why people, the brother has an issue in this book and how do we feel about sibling stuff? And then they start sharing. And I'm looking at the librarian like these kids need, make sure these kids get resources because this is heavy. So, I'm flexible in the sense that sometimes my presentations will be about writing. Sometimes I'll talk about, I share my 10-year-old journals, which is always embarrassing and hilarious, and that gets them engaged. And then sometimes a topic the school wants me to talk about. We did have a dress-coded assembly with the whole school, and I didn't realize the school was the kids at the school were having a dress code protest at the time, and all the faculty standing around, and they're like, we're protesting our dress code right now. And I was like, okay, I wrote this book. I'm not going to run away from this. Like, you had me here. But, so we have those moments. So really, I'm very flexible, and I can customize it. In terms of price, I have a sliding scale. So if you're in a district with no money and you can't get authors there because you have no money, I'll work with you, especially if it's Connecticut. I'll just come over for a couple hours. If it has to be one of those things where it's 2 full days and I need a lot of prep time, then I have to charge more money. But I'm very, so my thing is go to my website, email me, and I'll work with you.
Right, and you mentioned websites, so I should mention wine. On my website is all information you would need to find out about my school visits. I am booked through How Now Booking. I've been doing school visits for 5 or 6 years now, and I've gone all over the country. I've gone to Singapore. That was not a one-day quick visit.
I'm no lunch munch.
I'm doing Tokyo next year, so I have traveled all over to do school visits. I also have activity guides and teacher guides on my website. They're free. You just download them as a PDF, and they have suggestions on how to integrate my books across all the curriculum. My Jasmine Taguchi books, again, she's a 3rd grade Japanese American girl growing up in Los Angeles. Each book, it's about friendship and family and classroom, but each book has a thread of Japanese culture in it. And at the back of each book is an activity that oftentimes schools will use school-wide. The newer books, she's traveling to Japan. And while she is Japanese, she's Japanese American and has never been to Japan. So readers can experience what it's like to go to another country and not know what's going on, or the different cultures or the manners. I think, I can't remember now, maybe 5 different programs that I do for schools that are appropriate for K all the way up through probably 8th grade. I can do large groups. I can do small classrooms. I do writing workshops for young people from 3rd grade through 8th grade, and those have to be small group, up to 35 students. What else? I guess that's it. My presentations focus on like big dreams. That's Jasmine Taguchi, following your dreams, and I talk about what it's like to have a dream to be an author, for Jasmine to have a dream, and for the students to also have a dream and pursue that. I also talk about Nikki Nakayama, have a story time for the younger kids, 30 minutes. And I read the story and we talk about Japanese culture and food, and then integrate it into what those kids, what the students, what kind of foods do they like to eat. And you don't have to be from a different culture or have a different background. Food is very special and it unites people. So,
yeah. Can I just add something? I forgot. My favorite thing to do is writing workshops. So sometimes we'll do, a little assembly in the morning, and then the rest of the day is the kids who, either everyone or the kids who love to write, and then we just get into it, and by the end we have a flash fiction, and it's a lot of fun. And I can do that with any age. And I do college essays too for fun. It's more like I don't do grammar. I need a copy editor, but it'll be more like, let's figure out how to pull out that magical who are you thing from random moments in your life. So that's a challenge for me. I love it, and I do it just for fun on the side.
That's also my favorite stuff is the assembly, the big group, and then the smaller groups, or the lunch, and then working with interested students and kind of bring that opportunity for them to polish their stories. my son is a senior this year and is about to start his essay, so I might be calling him.
I love it. That's fine.
Can you hand me one of the mics?
I could have helped.
I'm like, ah.
The most useful thing to you guys from now, because I wanted them to give you a good overview of what they do. And now I have a feeling that you guys are going to have specific questions. So one mic will be passed wherever in the audience that you guys might have a question, and we'll go from there.
Well, I just want to say thank you for coming.
In this day and age, so I teach sixth grade. I also have an incoming sixth grader. Pray for me, please. Grader. How would you promote to the kids to have that balance of digital media, virtual, with actual, like, I'm sorry, I need to read cover to cover. Like, this is me. So how would you promote having that balance?
You mean like reading the book digitally?
Well,
Or-
actually, like being able to like write, read, just having a balance, just in general, I'd say.
Actually, that leads to a question that I have for you educators, because it's something that I'm hearing. I don't know if you guys know, I work in publishing in my day job. So, what we're hearing is that kids have a shorter attention span for long books.
Yeah,
So is that what you're getting at?
pretty much. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No
Shorter attention span in life.
Yeah.
I do think having smaller books, smaller chapters is really helpful for that. I think something that Carrie does really effectively in her books is have multiple points of entry to chapters. Like some are the podcasts, some transcripts, some are traditional chapters. I try to also offer multiple points of entry for that, multiple perspectives
Yeah.
in my stories. That seems to be really something that captures kids more. It is a challenge. Is a challenge as a writer to think I've got to write a whole book. That's a terrifying moment. But when you break it down to today, I'm going to write 2,000 words. Today, I'm going to write character outlines. It becomes much more manageable, and I think a similar approach with kids would be something that could really work. There's a platform that I use. Do you guys use Scrivener at all when you write? That naturally breaks it down, like of what you need to do. And I think anytime you can distill it that way and build excitement, there's a lot of onus on authors today to be part of that, to be on TikTok, to be on Instagram, to share our lives, and it's a challenge for me to strike that balance as well. I can't imagine how it is for the kids to grow up in that, that Snapchat environment. Again, it is a challenge to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in open and honest communication with everyone. So I feel like sitting down and talking to the class about, what how it affects the brain or how our brains are different with this and sharing that with them, but then doing an exercise of, okay, let's read a chapter digitally, because I have to do this myself. I'm typing on my computer, but I have to print the whole thing out to read my own work to be able to see stuff that I wouldn't see. So maybe let's read a chapter digitally and then let's read it on paper. And here's some questions, let's talk about the senses. How does it feel to read the book? We're touching it. How does it smell? So really bringing them into the experience of both things and then having them assess what they feel doing both. And just, saying, let's do this challenge of if you have digital stuff at your house, put it all away and sit in a room where you really are experiencing, maybe light a candle and have a cup of hot cocoa and hold that book and feel it and see if it's different. So to sort of have them experience it, because otherwise they have no idea, because they've grown up in this so long that it's hard to assess. So make it a teachable moment, I guess.
Those are all great suggestions. Mine's more simple, I think. I think once a child finds a book they connect with, that's going to be the thing they go to. find the thing that they love. And the way they're going to find that is through the gatekeepers, through parents and educators, providing all those choices to them. One of the things I say in my school group presentation is, unless it's an assignment or homework, when you're reading a book, even though every one of us as authors hope you will keep on reading, if you're reading and it's just not capturing your attention, it's okay to put it down. That's why there are so many books out there. There's a book for everybody. And there was a teacher, when Jasmine Taguchi Mochi Queen came out, there was a teacher who wrote to me. Her third grade student didn't like to read, she didn't like to write, but she saw the cover of Jasmine Taguchi sitting on her teacher's desk. She's Asian. She went up, asked to see the book, and that teacher sent me the picture of this girl reading my book in the cafeteria of all the kids eating and talking and just reading the book. And she went on to read all kinds of other books. She wrote Jasmine Taguchi Baking Queen. She wrote her own Jasmine Taguchi. I have a copy of it. But that's what I think it takes to build a reader, to grow a reader. And that's why it's such an honor to write for this age group, because we have this chance to take somebody and create a reader. And that's what you're all doing right now, is opening up the doors for these readers. And I think the only way you can do that is provide all the things for them and give them choices and, praise them for when they seem to be engaged in a book. Jasmine Taguchi, third grader, Japanese American girl. I have had parents in front of me try and convince their son that they should look for another book because it's got a girl on the cover. So, I know that's not what you all are doing, but, by providing these books for all readers and not making assumptions by the cover or by the type of story. I had an eighth grade boy tell me he loved Sweet and Sour. That's pretty much a love story. And he loved it. And I always tell the boys, you can read it, because then you'll learn what makes a good friend and a good boyfriend. But again, don't make assumptions. Let the kids read. And I think these days, more so than when I was growing up, boys can walk around with a pink book or a girl on the cover or whatever. I mean, it was never an issue for girls. We could read books with boys on them. But I feel like it's more and more becoming a thing where everybody feels more open to read it. And I have to just say one little thing about book banning, because my books have been banned. Jasmine Taguchi Flamingo Keeper has been banned, and Mochi Queen has been banned. And, by taking away books from readers, it keeps them from seeing themselves and also keeps them from seeing their community members. And in the end, it all shows kids that we're all alike deep down inside, right? All the emotions and feelings and experiences. So.
Can I just add something on the practical side of things? The library has Libby, and if you have kids who are more audio focused, if that helps them, it's a great thing to pair with whatever you're reading in the classroom to encourage them to check it out as an audio.
Yeah, I was actually I was thinking about that because there are people who process things differently. And so I think if they're getting the essence of the story and they're getting it in an audio way, like my daughter has to have audio to get through college, then, and also graphic novels. It was for a while, it was graphic novels, read a real book. But they're reading a real book. It's just a different format. So, really to push back, and just make it clear, if it's a story and you're feeling something from that story, then that's the goal here.
If I could piggyback on that, we hear so much about how negative technology is, but technology has really opened the world for a lot of disabled students as well. My daughter is visually impaired, and having the ability to increase the font size on her Kindle and read off of that has been amazing. Having her college textbooks be available that way, and audiobooks have just leveled the field. So please don't discourage that with your students. It's hurtful to hear, oh, you should actually read the book while you're listening to it, things like that, when that is the way to bridge that gap for her.
Just have one more quick thing. My stepdad has a traumatic brain injury from a bicycle accident and hasn't been able to read a book. And I specifically wrote dress coded with short chapters with lots of white space for kids with learning issues. But he called me and said it was the first time he'd been able to finish a book and he felt so accomplished. And so, just looking at how we present stories, and again, for thousands of years, storytelling was sitting around listening to the elders in the community tell the stories. And so it's really about the story, not how it's presented or formatted.
We have a question here.
Yes.
So it's more of a sorry.
Okay,
So
no problem.
I'm a special ed teacher, and my daughter has ADHD. And one of the things we've been struggling with is getting her to read. I'm a huge reader. My husband is not. It's not that he doesn't want to read. He also has ADHD, so it's kind of one of those things. I've been trying to get her into Harry Potter, and Stacey knows the story, but I've been trying to get into Harry Potter for a long time. She's going into 5th grade, so it's been one of those things. One day we were driving, and just for those of you that have special ed kids or kids that have that kind of thing, I decided to put it on audio in the car, and we had like an hour and a half drive. We went to my mother's, and she's like, "Mommy, I really like this." It was Jim Dale, of course, who doesn't like Jim Dale's voice. And that's how she finished the first book. And she listened to it at night, and she read along with it. She also had to get reading glasses, which we didn't know. So that was a big thing too. But just to kind of piggyback on what you're saying is that as someone who feels like an older Gen X kind of person who didn't have all of these old technology things, also be a teacher that I have to kind of roll with it, obviously too. And my daughter is now becoming a reader slowly, but it's happening. And now she's reading the second Harry Potter book, and we're listening to it. And she likes to do that. So just for my fellow educators that think that listening to it while you're reading it isn't beneficial, it actually really is. So.
And I think when a student says, "I don't like to read," that would be an immediate red flag to try to figure out if there's something else going on, the glasses or so yeah.
Also, on a side note, I am teaching middle school this year, but I've taught high school, and I teach self-contained English at the high school in Wolcott. And my kids fell in love with the Hunger Games last year to the point where they wanted to read Catching Fire. And it took me 6 weeks to get the books, but I did, and we finished it in the year. And because my curriculum is kind of fluid, we watched Julius Caesar instead of reading it too much. And it's actually better for Shakespeare for them to actually read it, because most of my guys are LD. They've got ADHD. They've got some kind of learning disability that does encourage them to read. But I had juniors and seniors that were like, "We want to read the second book." They were like, and because we listened to it and read at the same time, they were like into it.
That's the goal. Yeah.
Did I see a question over here?
Hi, thank you so much for joining us today. You had mentioned some of the ways that teachers or schools had incorporated your books into the programming that they were doing. Is there a really interesting or really memorable way that schools or classrooms had incorporated your books that still sticks with you to this day? Oh, nobody else has really done that before, but that was really cool.
Good question. I want to start?
I just recently went to a school. Oh, shoot. I think it was New Jersey, but I don't know. It was somewhere around here. I drove to it. And they had done an all-school read of Jasmine Taguchi. And it was Mochi Queen, the first book. And every single teacher or topic, they developed something from the book for their kids. So one of the things everything they did was fascinating, but the phys ed, that was what blew me away, because I never even really thought about that. But what he did was he researched calisthenics in Japan and how they teach gym in Japan. And so for that day, all the kids did the calisthenics and the things that the Japanese kids do in school. So I thought that was really cool. I mean, they did, they made mochi from Mochi Queen because it was a recipe, and there was a math activity where they had to measure out all the ingredients and weigh them. They did a storytelling where they told stories about what they do in their families for holidays, because it's a Japanese New Year's holiday story. But that to me was really cool, because I could see how it gets integrated in language arts and social studies and that, but to find out they also integrate it for phys ed, that was really cool.
That is really cool teaching. Yeah. I think usually with my books, it's a lot of making protest signs and what would you choose in your community, if in your school, to change, and then how would you go about doing it? So kind of using my books as an anchor to have conversations about what can be changed at the community local level. So and then the one school that had the bulletin boards, it was really cool because the kids were excited because they've been ramping it up for so long with let's make bulletin boards, using the books, and they had the books displayed all over so it was like a lot of visual introduction to the book, which got the kids excited, which got them wanting to read. So it was kind of simple but effective, I think. So then when I walked in, they thought I was a famous person because, that goes a long way just to getting the kids interested in the book. And then the school in Vermont, I get choked up because when I walked in, there were 3 young guides waiting for me holding daffodils and maple syrup.
Aww.
And it just meant so much because it was like, welcome, so those little things go a long way for authors.
I think there are certainly things that the entire school can get behind to kind of make that school visit powerful. Reading a chapter, or not a chapter, but a paragraph over the announcements in the morning, having drawing pictures, really having the book talk with the librarian. One of the best engagement opportunities that I've been privileged to be part of with the school was a teacher in Farmington, actually, who created the newspaper club, but also individual family folklore, which is something that has inspired a few of my books. Having the kids interview their relatives and their like grandparents or their neighbors, for people who might not have that opportunity, that close relationship with family members, or where they're not comfortable doing that, they would make up ancestors and write stories like that, which I thought was really fun. I know that works. I know that interviewing family works because that's how I became a storyteller, was interviewing my dad. When I was in 4th grade, my dad, who's a machine operator, was injured, and he spent about 6 months in a hospital bed in our living room. And that's around the same time that I discovered that I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't have anything to write about. I just had all of these notebooks that I was collecting that were blank. So I decided I was going to steal his stories and write that. I was just going to interview him. And my dad was a lot like me in that he was not very talkative. It was really hard to get stories out of him. So it was really fun whenever I could. And I would just continuously ask him question after question. I also wanted to be a photographer for a while. So I had this whole album of my dad looking slightly annoyed because I was like, tell me about when you did this. And he'd be like, snap this picture and story. The one story that he never wanted to share with me was about, not surprisingly, his first kiss. He's not a romantic. And I just begged for this story. And finally, he did share it. And if you'll dodge me about sharing this quick story. My dad is one of 6 kids, grew up in a small Pennsylvania town. And there weren't a lot of people to play with. So he would spend all summer with his siblings, riding bicycles, playing baseball, all of that. One summer when he was 8, there were a group of 5 siblings who were coming to stay with their aunt about 2 blocks away from my parent, or where my dad grew up. And that was really exciting because they filled the gaps between their kids. So it was like now this feral group of kids who were just running around. And about halfway through the 2nd week, the brothers of that visiting family dared my dad to kiss their sister. And my dad was like, absolutely not. That's disgusting. And then the 7-year-old little girl, their hands on her hips, was like, I dare you. Had to. So he leaned forward and he really quickly pecked her cheek. And at that same moment, there was this loud bang, and the screen door opened, and her aunt stepped out on the porch and screamed, "What are you doing?" My dad was mortified. He left his bike, left his siblings, ran home, did not leave his house until that visit was up with the family, and that was his first kiss. And as he was telling me this, his ears turned bright red. He was reliving this, that late in life. But when I finally broke him down to the point where he shared this story, it was at we had relatives over, we had family visiting, so they were all listening and they were all laughing at him telling this. Everyone except for my great aunt Arlene, who crossed her arms and was like, "Well, of course I yelled," which made no sense because this was my mom's arm, not my dad's. And they stared at each other for a minute, and then my dad said, "Where did you live?" The year I was 8, and it turns out that my mother's aunt lived 2 blocks from where my dad had grown up. My parents thought they met when they were 16 and 17. They had actually met when they were 7 and 8 and had their first kiss.
Oh my God.
And they never would have known. They were married for 15 years when my dad shared that story. They never would have made that connection unless my dad had shared that story. So
Wow.
my story.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild? My mom's childhood was dramatic and traumatic, and she had lived up all around the country. But she had an aunt that grew up in the same town as my dad.
Wow. That's a good one, Beth.
So you've got to
That's
share
a good
your
one.
stories. You've got to pull them out and be willing to share them because stories connect us.
I'm glad that I just didn't get the way to answer.
Yeah.
And I was like, please don't tell me. And I was kissing this.
Yeah,
That would be a whole other type of story.
that was a story. I mean, this just inspires me to add, you can tell a school, the soul of a school, by how they value author visits and how they value bringing authors into the school. Because, in some places it's more about let's collect baubles and let's have, it's non-art related activities and events that don't really add to the artistic integrity of your district. But it doesn't have to be a famous author. It can be, we have so many authors ready to come and tell stories like this. And I think a lot of districts are like, well, we can't afford, author visits because this X author is $75,000 an hour or something. It doesn't have to be that, but it's like the author who just came out with their first book and lives a few towns away and would love to be treated like a superstar for a day. And then, your kids are seeing you value someone's storytelling, or you value an artist, an illustrator who comes in and does illustration. So just remember that, because it makes a difference. And, like you said, the child who now is doing fan fiction, that kid could be hanging out in the back of that auditorium. And for some of our authors, those kids need to see themselves in person, in somebody's story. So just try to kind of team up with the PTO too, because I've had PTOs raise money and bring authors in. And we go to Chappaqua Book Fair. It's a huge fair. It's at the end of September. I've been there, and PTO people are lurking around trying to get cards and getting ready, and they're competing with each other, and it's actually really refreshing to see because they're focusing on storytelling.
And one way of getting an author to come in that maybe you're not paying a fee, but the whole school has agreed that they're going to read the book, and so you're promoting the purchase of the book. And I happen to know one author who is an amazing middle grade author. Tracy Batiste has a new book coming out, and she wants to do Connecticut schools this fall. So in September, if you have the ability to arrange a school visit, I can help you make that happen, as long as you feel like you can do something that would promote book sales as well. And that would be a no fee for the school visit. So I just wanted to throw that out to you, because her team has come to me saying, can you help us arrange September school visits for Tracy? And she's an amazing author and does amazing presentations.
Yeah.
Anybody else have questions?
Talked about storytelling. I work with English language learners, all of them immigrants. And so every year I have them tell their family immigration story. And so I'm wondering if anybody has ever workshopped with English language learners. Have you? to to help them tell their stories?
Not specifically, but yeah. I mean, I think it's part of all of what we do is that helping people connect. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Sometimes I forget that I'm not talking
me
in the
too.
microphone. Helping students connect and be able to tell their stories. I think, again, that's another thing that books do is show that everybody's story is important. And also there's, again, we all connect on the same level. We all have a fight with a friend or a disagreement, or we've told a little white lie to our parents or whatever. And I think that's what ultimately helps all students. As for English language learners, I haven't done anything specific, but I did once work with a group who were English as a second language. And what we eventually did is we didn't write our stories, we told our stories and recorded it and shared it that way. And I think the teacher may have later written down their stories for them and they all put it in a book. But yeah, so that's that particular experience. Yeah.
Yeah, so my work as an educator was in ESL in the old days. So I worked with students from 30 countries in New York, and I had to get them through the U.S. history and government regions. But in the meantime, we did all kinds of fun things together, and we started our first climate club and cleaned up parks in New York City. So that was really special. But for me, yeah, I mean, I've worked on that, and I think sometimes it's about taking one thing, like what is something you eat on a holiday, and using that anchor piece to write a story that we then all put together, because there's trauma there, so we have to be careful. I'm currently working with our Avon VFW to resettle an Afghan family. It's been fantastic because I still worked with immigrants since I left New York, and the trauma's there, and sometimes it's triggered by very simple things. Tell me about your grandmother. Well, grandma's still in Afghanistan, and the Taliban's chasing her because we're here. So we have to be careful. But if there's something like a food that you like to eat, then it's we can kind of couch that with, if that makes sense, and then we use that as and maybe the trauma comes out, but we're trying to be more sensitive to it. So, yeah, I mean, you can have a lot of fun with writing workshops with kids from multiple countries together, and a lot of laughs. And sometimes it's like, what is something we say here that just makes your face turn red because in your culture that's a weird thing, like that kind of thing. Because I remember I was teaching in Taiwan, and I would say there was something I would say that sounded like toilet paper in their language, and they would always laugh. And I'm like, why are you laughing? And the assistant finally said, because you're saying toilet paper. So those kinds of silly things can be an icebreaker.
I would just also point out, and teachers' guides are going to be available. We're almost out of time. A lot of publishers who are making teachers' guides for children's books will include sections about using the book specifically for ELL. So if you're familiar with Leon Lowe, that's the publisher that I work with. Every one of our teacher's guide, and we make a teacher's guide for every one of the books that we publish, has a section on how to use this book with ELLs. So just wanted to point that out.
It's good too.
Oh, I was just gonna say one more thing. I taught ESOL, English that Speaks Other Language, for 17 years, and the biggest focus for me, I taught kindergarten all the way to junior college. But the biggest thing is building vocabulary and comprehension. And one strategy you can take that I'm using is super successful is use picture books by taking 2 books. You keep one with the text and you white out one with the text. And so you put it up and you can do like a memory in the morning type thing, like every day you put up a spread and you let them try to tell what's going on in the text. That's how I can always tell whether or not they were understanding, and how well a book is illustrated. And I think you should try that. It's very effective. I was a curriculum integration specialist in 9 different states. And my last was at IB school. I did NYP and PYP, and that was a strategy, but it was so effective that when they took their SOL, the state will come and take me out of the classroom, me and the teacher, so they can take the test. But it's highly effective, and I think a lot of times as teachers we don't know what to do, especially when it's overcrowded and it's so much of a mix. But all your students can benefit from thinking strategies and just something as simple as building vocabulary and comprehension.
Thank you.
And we're running out of time, so thank you so much to our authors. And we're now going to have some time to mix and mingle, and you can ask them.
You.
Thank you.